I just want to add one thing. Up until 3 days before we made this decision, I was unaware of any of it. I had not heard from one school district. And when I tried to follow up with the call that I had from Senator Martins and from some of the other districts, I found many districts just didn't feel that it pertained to them. And I don't know, I'm real curious to see how many of the people here, either they had this in effect because they had a large population of ELL students, or they weren't going to have to put it into effect because they didn't have the 20. So I still don't know, and I don't think, I did ask the question at the meeting, who is this affecting? And nobody knew at the department, so.
Thank you, Regent Tillis. And yes, I think this is going to impact districts in different ways. There are some districts with very few ELL or ESL students that won't be severely impacted. And then we know, if you had seen Newsday today, the Hempstead School District is struggling to provide these programs, and that's going to be a challenge for many of the districts. So we understand that. And Dr. Grassani, you're from a district that probably does not have a very high population of ELL students, but if you would care to comment.
Absolutely. No, Smithtown at this time does not have the amount of students that would require ELL service for us to implement the 20 students in a school in one particular language. However, we did see an increase in students with needing ELL services, and we were able to handle that within our current staffing. So that's going to be an increase year to year in every district with students. We have a variety of languages coming from in our district, not one particular one that would really drive this. However, in my sector, in Suffolk County, there are districts that are going to be tremendously affected by this. And really what it comes down to is basically what Regent Tillis and Senator Flanagan touched upon, is the fact that the districts, again, are being asked to implement a program that is going to cost money, but yet we will not be able to ask our taxpayers for this money because we're under a cap. This year, I believe our rate's going to be 1.5%, which will not even meet our current contractual obligations. So that keeps districts in a period of deficit spending, which is not a good place for us to be financially. And while we may not have this impact this year, no one can predict what's going to bring next year. So in a budgeting process, I have to keep contingencies within my budget, and that will cost other programs. And in a time when parents are clamoring for program. My expertise is in the area of special education. So I work with my PPS staff in whatever district I've ever worked in to try to streamline that process and bring students back to district to save money so that we can use that money in other programs. However, when we're capped at what we could ask our taxpayers, when we still have to deal with the gap elimination adjustment, because everyone feels that we're all incredibly wealthy, and we're not getting our fair share back in what our constituents put forth in the taxes for the state, you put us in a very precarious position. Perhaps not Smithtown this year, but absolutely Central Islip, Brentwood, Huntington, South Huntington, other districts where they're going to have to divert resources to meet this mandate. And again, it's a mandate with no funding. And I will speak for myself. I won't speak for all my fellow superintendents, but we are living up to our end of the bargain. We're living within the cap. We're doing what the governor and the legislature asked us to do. We know our communities won't support a 60% override. So we're living within that. But then we can't be kept being asked to do other things without the appropriate funding. So that's kind of where we stand.
Thank you, Dr. Grassani. Ms. McIntosh, care to shed some light on, maybe you can tell us from your perspective as a program director, what you've seen as the reason for these changes, and then any other comments you'd like to make.
I think part of what we can all agree on is that the implementation of the Common Core, we have seen our ELL students struggle, just like our non-ELL students have struggled with that role in an implementation. And I can understand the idea of looking at alternative programs in order to meet those needs and looking at other suggestions of best practices. What's difficult in looking at this is that it's taking the practices that we've had that have been successful and really throwing them out and starting again. And that's the piece to me, in Sachem, we have over 200 ESL kids. Right now we're at 215, and of those 215, they represent 26 different languages. So when we look at our students, I will tell you that at we have a very high graduation rate. We have a high passing rate on the Regents exams. Our kids are meeting success because of the phenomenal teachers that we have. And the concerns looking forward for us specifically are we will fall into that net where we have to offer a bilingual program. And we will have to offer bilingual right now with our current numbers for kindergarten, first, and second grade next year. That's our prediction. More so than looking at the bilingual is the idea of the students that we now identify as ELL or ESL will be ENL next year. And in being ENL next year, they'll need to get ENL, standalone services, as well as integrated English language arts. So for us, looking at our concern about this, it's more than just looking at the idea of creating a bilingual program, which has the transportation expense and also has the piece of having to hire qualified staff when on Long Island, there is not an overwhelming pool of people and candidates coming to us that are elementary certified and hold a Spanish bilingual extension. That's the reality. And if you look around this room, we're all going to be competing for that pool of who's coming in for the future. Beyond that now, we're looking at having to change a program that, quite honestly, in Sachem, it's working for us. Our kids are meeting success. We are working with our kids who are SIFE kids. We're working through. We are helping them meet the Common Core. And now we're looking and saying that instead of our kids receiving the level of ENL services, if you will, that they're getting now, for many of our kids, that'll be cut in half or eliminated. And the service that they'll be getting will be an integrated service with an ESL teacher and an English teacher working together to put our kids, our beginners, into English. Now, when we think about that and we think about the success of the changing face of our ESL kids that we're seeing, I don't know about your districts. I can only speak to Sachem. The kids that are coming into us are coming in with a different level of education from their home languages, with a different level of literacy in their own home language. And when they come to us, we've got to first meet them where they are and bring them up to a level. Now I'm talking about taking a newcomer or a beginner student and putting them in an English class and expecting them to be successful in a collaboratively taught environment. And in order for that to work, not only do we need the right teachers in that environment, but we need the right professional development for that collaborative model to be successful. And when we talk about the idea of how to roll this out, do I see merits in this? Of course. When we're looking at this and we're talking about the idea of identifying our students with special needs who also happen to be ENL students, and we look at the idea of really giving them the proper services that they need, there are definitely merits to this. The idea is the fact that we're looking at this and we're talking about reallocating resources from 14,000 students in our district to meet the needs of 215 for the program to be successful. At first glance, for us to be able to roll this out exactly as it is in the mandates, we're talking about in our district alone about $1.5 million to roll this out and make this work. And the only way right now with that additional funding to make that happen is to take funding away from those 14,000 kids. And to me, there has to be a medium in the middle. There really has to be a way that we can work out best practices for all students, and still help our ESL students to be successful.
Thank you. And I think the first question that we posed this afternoon really answered a lot of the concerns already that we have that are related perhaps to funding, related to how are we going to implement a bilingual program, where is the money going to come from, how it is going to impact different districts. But one thing with the first question, why were the regulations revised, I think it's also important to note, as we all know, there is a huge influx of immigrant population. Statistics show that there was a 20% growth rate of non-speaking English students in the last 10 years. And that amounts to 30,000 students alone on Long Island. In addition to that, if we look at the subgroup populations of the ELL students, their graduation rates are far below those of the English-speaking peers. One of the statistics I had seen was 75% for the speaking versus 31% for non-speaking. So I think we could put that into the mix also, and I'm sure there are many other concerns. So thank you, panel, for your honest answers on that first question.